Hey, this is Sasha. Thanks for joining me in today's video. And what I want to share with you today is how you can make more money in your coaching business and still save some time. So stay tuned. I'll share with you this in this video. All right, so if you run a coaching business where you go ahead and maybe do something virtual, like let's say you go ahead and somebody books a time slot with you and then you meet up with them and you give them some sort of service, advice, brainstorming session, all that kind of stuff where you're connecting with them and you give them a service, I'm going to share with you some insight on how you can go ahead and increase this, especially for those of you that are doing like virtual meetups, virtual sessions for coaching, virtual sessions for teaching things. This is going to be really beneficial. So typically the approach that you take is you go ahead and a client reaches out to you. Maybe they saw your blog, your video, your podcast, and they reach out to you and they say, hey, I'd love to discuss some things on my business. I'd love to go ahead and you take a look at, let's say, my diet, my health routine, what I'm doing. Could you go ahead and advise me? So you might meet up for 30, 40, 50 minutes. And then you go ahead and share some insight with them, and they go on their way and they're kind of happy after the meetup. So this is a time-consuming approach when you go ahead and do this, because for everybody that comes in new, you have to go ahead and do the scheduling. Even if the scheduling is automatic, you have to meet up, and there's always like a little bit of buffer in between, right? The ramp up of getting started, right? You have to either change, prepare, look at your notes, that kind of stuff. Then you have to close things down, send them the video, and that kind of stuff. So there's always that getting started hump, the initial buffer time, and the afterwards as well. Now, when you're doing one-to-one sessions like this, that becomes very time consuming. And how do I know this? Well, I actually do one-to-one coaching. So if you look at the stock market and investing here that I deal with on the option side, people pay for a session. And then after they go ahead and pay for a session, they schedule the time, and then we go ahead and there's different sessions. Like you could buy 1 session, 3 sessions, 5 sessions, and it's cheaper if you buy a bulk. And then basically I work through it and I send them the video recording once we're done. But this does get time consuming. So how do you ramp these things up? Well, the way to do that is to go ahead and transition from one-to-one to one-to-many. And then there's also a hybrid. So one-to-one is really, if you got the picture here, it's basically you and then you're catering to one person, so it's them. Okay, so you got one-to-one. Now this sucks up a lot of time. It's time commitment, but sometimes you kind of need that. It just depends on your niche, your industry, or your service. So for me, because I offer that, sometimes that's the best way to get to know somebody. So if you go ahead and look at it this way, hey, the one-to-one sessions here, I'm showing a one-to-one session, so you better get a one-to-one session. It would be weird for me to kind of say or offer this and then they get something completely different, because the next step with this would be the one-to-many. So this would be you, and now you go ahead and you probably guessed it, you are catering to more people. So this could be people of, let's say, 50 people. It could be 10 people. It could be 100 people. It could be 500 people. Think of this as like maybe a webinar, but it could be a class. And now what it allows you to do is, if you sell this way, and let's just take, for example, if this session is normally $300, or you're charging $300 for 1 hour of your time, these sessions, if you're doing maybe 10 people, you might say, okay, well, for 10 people, I might just charge them $75 a session. Well, you're still making more money than you would here, but they get a little bit less attention, but they still get your time. When you're doing maybe 500 people, it might be a webinar, you might be able to say, hey, well, it'll just be like a $20 per attendee, and now you can cater to more people, but it'll be less connected, right? Because here is high degree of connection, okay? Whereas when you're doing one-to-many, there's less connection. So you might need to lower the price a little bit. Not necessarily that you always do, but it depends on the niche, the industry, and the level of service you want to provide. And then the next step here that you could have is a hybrid. So what is a hybrid? I would say it's a mix. So when you look at a hybrid, it's a mix where you have a one-to-one. Okay, so you have some one-to-ones and you have some group sessions, one-to-many. When you do this, it allows you to kind of handle some specific questions of the individual. It makes them feel a bit better from the service that they're paying for, your time, your attention, and you can really address any problems that they may have. But for general concepts, you can also do the one-to-many. So it creates a little bit of a nice hybrid effect from your services. Now, I do this from my, if you look at my mentoring program here, this is a much more expensive program. This is where I'm dealing with people on 6+ months. I'm coaching them in their investments, option trading, and that kind of thing. And I'm sharing with them strategies. And what we do here is we do big meetups and training sessions and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of sessions involved because I'm 6 months plus, but the price tag is a bit higher. Now, if you're really, really big, really, really popular, you may be able to justify this type of price tag and then still go ahead and cater one-to-many. So you might go ahead and say, okay, well, because I'm so big and so popular, I'm still going to go ahead and sell one-to-many. And people are still going to pay me a higher ticket price. But in my case, I prefer personal attention just because this is a much more difficult type of industry. It's stressful for people. Also, I want to give that personal attention. So typically at the beginning, I will do a lot of one-to-one sessions. But then we might do periodically, let's just say an 80-20 rule. We might do 20% group sessions periodically. And I typically would want to keep it less than 10 people. Now, in general, might be 5, but I might pull in like 3 or 4 other people that are just kind of listening in and maybe not asking questions. It might be the second time they're kind of listening in on that type of topic. So in general, like 5 to 10 people is kind of the sweet spot, because that way people are still getting that one-on-one feel. So you have the hybrid, the one-on-one feel, because they're paying a larger price tag, but they also get, some group sessions and maybe hearing other people. And I find that's a nice balance for me. Now, in your case, you might be running your business a little bit different. You might be catering to more and more people. Just the way that you operate things could be different than what I'm doing here. So in that case, you might decide to always go one-to-many. Or in your case, you might decide to always go one-to-one. But what I would really advise you to do is, if you can, and if possible, to slowly start transitioning here one-to-many. Even if you go ahead and do something once a month, like I understand, for example, a lawyer might always need to do one-to-one. But even then, there are some general questions that a lawyer might get that people may want to ask, and you could go ahead and say, hey, once a month, I go ahead and do a Q&A session, and for up to 10 people, and you pay X amount of dollars, and you could go ahead and give some kind of advice in that case, maybe. Again, just a thought or idea, but the point is that now you're starting to move and save some time. If you're already fully booked on your one-to-one sessions, now you could go ahead and, for people that are okay with a group session, you could move them into this basket, and allows you to kind of just focus in on one single session and make either a little bit more money or just save some time, so that way you have more time available for you to cater towards other opportunities. So anyways, I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for joining me, and be sure to go ahead and download some great freebies that I have on the website by clicking the link here, or just scroll down in the description. There's going to be a couple links in that area as well. And if you're new to the YouTube channel, then click subscribe here. But if you're listening to this on Spotify, iTunes, or a podcast, then be sure to check out the YouTube channel. Thanks again, and I will see you next time.